Here's what you'll need to get started. Here's a wooden board. It's a flat surface that won't warp or bend when it gets wet. This one's pretty thin, but you could get a thicker one or even use a table. Here's my painter's tape. This is going to go around the trim of my paintings. It is available in white if blue is distracting. And this is water activated artist paper tape. It's got a gum stickiness that will activate with this water and this fresh, clean sponge. Now, if you did not buy the fancy paper and you went with something around 100 pounds or maybe just a little bit heavier, like 140, you are going to need to stretch your paper if you don't want it to come out wavy. If you don't mind the waves, it's fine. You can skip this step. But if you want to be extra flat with your paper and just kind of look nice and professional, you will stretch it. This is in a bathtub that I'm doing this, nice room temperature or cold water. And I'm just making sure that all sides are getting touched by the water, and this is about a 10-minute process. I'm also making sure that the paper is not touching the bottom of the tub or the sides, just in case you don't want it to get dirty. You could also use a sink for this, or even just a very big bin filled with water. And all you're doing is just flipping it back and forth, nice and slowly, and just making sure water's getting into every part of the paper. This is after about 10 minutes, and you can see the paper is much more limp, but I'm still being gentle with it as I'm about to take it out and put it on this board. At this stage, you can bend your paper if you're not careful with it. So I'm picking it up here gently and letting the water drain out. You'll see all the drips coming. And once it's pretty much done dripping, I'm going to be putting it on top of my board carefully. Here I go. And just trying not to bend it, being very ginger with it, very gentle. And now I'm ready to smooth it out and tape it down. Here's where the sponge and the paper tape are going to come into play. As we're doing this, we're going to be smoothing down the paper with the sponge and also using the sponge to activate the tape. And so that's why it's really important for the sponge to be new so that it's clean. My sponge actually is new, but I had used it before and left it out, so it got some dust on it. You'll see me try to kind of re-scrub areas. That's to get the dust off. But I'm just smoothing out any bumps. With small paper like this, there shouldn't be a ton of bumps that happen, but it's just there for that anyway. And then this is my paper tape. I'm using the sides of the picture to see how long I should make it, because this is going to go on each of the 4 sides, just on the very edge, because any paper that we attach this to is pretty much going to be cut off at the end. So we don't want it to go that far into the paper, especially if you're planning on making a big painting. You want to leave room for that. So here I just have my clean water on my paper. I'm running it on the side with that water activated gum. And as I do that, you can see that the tape is getting flatter, and I can feel that it's sticky on my fingers as I do this. So I make sure it's nice and wet, because if it's not, it will not activate and parts of it will start to come up. So I have it just on the very edge of the painting here, as you can see, and I'm smoothing it out. Now, as you go, there may be bumps that come up on your picture, your paper, and every time you see one of those, you need to smooth it out so that you make sure that it's not going to be a problem for your picture. Here's my next piece of tape, and I'm doing the same thing, just getting it all entirely wet. I like to try and do it starting from one side and continuing with sides that are connected to that, not going on opposite sides, but connected adjacent sides. This is going to help the paper to not bow if we go kind of more slowly, more progressive like that. And here I'm just wetting it with the sponge and smoothing it all out. But I will do this on all 4 sides. Once I get to the last side, that is my last chance to smooth out my paper. So I'm going to be really careful at that point. Here we're getting really close to being ready to add paint onto this. This is just a really simple way I have found for making the size of your picture instead of needing to get the measurements all right. If you have a frame in mind, a size that you're going to be doing, this is an 8x10, get the frame out and get that little photo paper that they put in there for advertising and just trace that on your paper. It makes it so easy. If you already know it's going to be that size, why not use it? And that way it's going to fit perfectly into what you have, and it takes the guesswork out of it. Just make sure you use your best tracing skills and try not to move the paper when you do this. This paper that I'm using for this is actually bigger than the one that I showed you before because I have multiple projects going at the same time. So this is a different sized one, and so I had room for 2 pictures on this one, 2 paintings on this one piece of paper. But if you have a smaller piece of paper, then you're going to want to just put it right in the middle to leave room for the painter's tape that's going to come down and frame your painting. So here with the painter's tape, I'm just going in and laying it right on those lines that I made, on the outside of those lines, so that this way it's going to act as a barrier to protect the paper from the paint and leave a nicer finish on the edge. Now, paint can still get through, and often does, but it's not the end of the world, and there are things that we can do to help with that, which I will show you at the end of all of these projects. Again, if this blue is distracting to you, they do have it available in white. I am just a big fan of saving money and using what I have right on hand before I get some white tape, probably in the future. Okay, once you get all 4 of your edges taped down nicely, you are ready to begin your painting. I'm excited to start these projects with you guys. I hope that you will stick with it through every painting in the series. And I know it's going to be a challenge, but it's also going to be new and interesting, and it's going to be a really amazing experience for those of you that stick with it. If you did decide to go with the fancier option of paper, you don't need to do the paper stretching part with the water or even that paper tape with the gum. You don't even need that. Substitute every time that there's tape, just use the painter's tape, which for me was blue, but for you could maybe be white, and put that around the edges of your paper, and then also put it around the edges of the lines that you drew for the frame of your painting. So this was in preparation for our 4 different paintings that we're going to be making for our loved ones to give as gifts for Christmas, and I hope that you'll stick with me through the whole series. Click on the link at the end screen to be taken to the next video in this series, which will be our first landscape painting, and in that video it will tell you all the materials that you need if you haven't gotten them already. Comment down below if you have any questions at all. We are here to help. Thanks so much for watching. Be so blessed.